had the meeting yesterday. We've been meeting for several weeks over the last three to 4 months, really, with the Department for Enterprise, asking for a bit more assistance, really, for the trade. We've been shut 5 months in the last sort of just over 12 months, and that has been led to substantial losses to our members. And people who are young in the trade are really struggling now to survive, and it's become a great problem, So we've been talking and working with the Department for Enterprise. We've done surveys, and it's gone through with their accountancy to work out a plan, but it's so slow, and it's so urgent, really, that some of these businesses are helped at this time, because it's very difficult. Because I do believe, and over the last 15, 16 months, it's proved entirely what I've always believed. At one stage, the pubs in the Isle of Man and in Britain in general were considered places where people drink too much, etc., and not to be considered that great. What has been proved in this last 15, 16 months is how much the public house is needed. It is the hub. The pub is the hub. It's where the community meet to socially interact, and it is greatly missed, and it proves it. When I welcome my customers back after a lockdown, and they've missed it terribly, and the mental effect on them it shows in certain cases, and that's going to be around us for several months and several years, in fact.
Well, you mentioned there that you have been in talks with the Department for Enterprise.
Yes.
They have offered a range of schemes over the last year or so. Why is it now that you need to look for something specific for the pub trade?
This isn't now. This is something we've been asking about since this whole thing began. I realise the government's got a terrible problem. Nobody's had to live with such a thing as this in either my lifetime or anybody else's. It's a pandemic of enormous proportion, and the government have handled the health effect, I think, quite well, and have really worked hard, and Mr. Ashford and Mr. Quayle and all the MHKs have contributed into making the island as safe a place as possible. But during that time, businesses have really, really struggled, and it doesn't appear to be a level playing field. Some types of business are getting more help than others, and it makes it very difficult in our industry when a man who is self-employed only has to prove £250 worth of overheads. He gets the same amount as a public house which is shut down, and the overheads of running that public house are a lot greater, and it makes it very difficult.
Well, you mentioned there the different type of support that's been available to other industries. Do you think the pub sector has been perhaps one of the hardest hit?
I think we've been very poorly, very badly hit. It's easy to. I'm not trying to say it's been done deliberately or anything like that. This pandemic has been very, very difficult, and we've been trying to work and point out the difference and the fairness. That's all from our members' perspective. And it's just getting through to the right people to realise the situation and see if we can gain some help for our members. Because it would be terrible if, when this whole thing is over, hopefully before next summer, we might get a season out of it. And if we get a summer season next year, and the hotels, who have been well helped in this pandemic, I'm not saying badly or wrongly or anything, but they have received considerable help. They'll be able to open up, but when that happens, there are less restaurants and less public houses because of the lack of help and the lack of being able to continue. I think that will reflect badly on our community. not just from tourism, but from the need for that social interaction and meeting place.
So what support are you looking for from the Department for Enterprise? Is it going to be a one-off grant, something that is continuing? What exactly are the needs?
Well, it's not it can't be a one fits all, one thing fits all. It doesn't work that way. I think it's got to be looked at. It's got to be practical. We do need, I think, a lump sum of some description to help all those public houses who've had terrible overheads through these times, and they sort of borrowed their way through the first pandemic. Then they're hit by another one, and then a great one, and this last one has proved to be very much the most difficult in the tightening of resources. So we're working with other places of hospitality and trying to find out with the Department for Enterprise a way forward to try and plan for the next 12 months, because with no TT, no Grand Prix, no tourists, it's still going to be a heavy season, and the prediction is we'll be 32% down in the next 12 months, and that is colossal. It's a colossal amount, and it's certainly way above profitability. So the type of thing we would like to see going on is the salary support scheme continuing, and perhaps for a while without having to have a 25% reduction in trade to prove that, but to help the people, help the salary support, and help everybody just take off again to get to a profitable situation. Very, very difficult. We've always kept our staff on throughout these crises. We could have laid them off like certain other places have, but it's not fair on the employees either. So it's a hard one. It's a hard one.
You mentioned there that some businesses have had to borrow to get through this period so far. Is there a danger potentially that there are some businesses who will think, oh, we're okay now, but down the line we find out the true impact of this economically?
I think that's true, and I think that the borrowing is also, if you borrowed in the first place and you find that you were hit by the next two lockdowns, and those borrowings have in many cases not been enough, how do you borrow again? Because I know that how banks work, and I was told several years ago in pubs when they were talking about lending on a traffic light system, pubs were red. Now that was 10 years ago. What's it going to be like now? It's going to be a lot worse. And I've been fighting, and as all our members have been fighting, just for a little bit more help, please.